Welcome to Top Fact Amazing. So, what's the biggest animal you've ever seen in real life? An elephant, maybe? A giraffe? Or maybe you were lucky enough to spot a blue whale? They're all massive, but believe it or not, they're not the biggest animals to have ever existed. In fact, they're not even the biggest of their own kind. Join me as we dive into the world of the biggest creatures to ever walk the earth and discover what made them so extraordinary. Arthropleura. For most people, the sight of a millipede crawling across the floor is enough to send chills down their spine. If you're one of those people, you'll be glad you weren't around 300 million years ago, because back then, there was a creature called Arthropleura on Earth. This enormous critter holds the record as the largest terrestrial arthropod ever. How large, you ask? Based on fossils found in Northumberland, England, scientists estimate that these animals could grow up to 8.2 feet long, over 2 feet longer than the average human. And here's the kicker: some evidence suggests that when threatened, these giant bugs might have lifted their upper bodies like a cobra. Although paleontologists can't confirm this just from fossils, imagine one of these towering over you. As if that's not terrifying enough, Arthropleura fossils indicate a body mass of around 110 pounds, about the same weight as a typical 14-year-old kid. Yikes, someone grab the bug spray. For comparison, the largest terrestrial arthropod alive today is the coconut crab. While impressive in size, coconut crabs are only 40% as long and less than 10% as heavy as Arthropleura. So, what caused these massive millipedes to get so big? During the Carboniferous period, oxygen levels in Earth's atmosphere were over 30%, about 10% higher than today. This elevated oxygen allowed arthropods, which absorb oxygen much less efficiently than mammals, to grow far larger than they ever could now. And I think I speak for all of us when I say, thank goodness for the drop in oxygen. Epicyon haydeni. While arthropods aren't exactly adorable, dogs are a whole different story. They're man's best friend, after all, no matter their shape or size. Although, I'm not sure this one quite counts. Meet Epicyon haydeni, a prehistoric canine that lived during the late Miocene period, between 12 and 6 million years ago. These giants are the largest canines ever to exist, standing as tall as a grizzly bear, 3 to 4 feet at the shoulder and up to 8 feet long. Epicyon haydeni weighed around 250 pounds on average, which is roughly the combined weight of 70 chihuahuas. And one particularly bulky specimen, based on a fossil humerus, is estimated to have tipped the scales at around 370 pounds, close to the weight of a small grizzly bear. But size wasn't their only bear-like trait. Epicyon haydeni belonged to the Barophaginae subfamily of canines, known as the bone-crushing dogs. Yikes! As you might expect, Epicyon haydeni was equipped with incredibly powerful jaws, sturdy molars, and sharp canines, perfectly suited to take down bears or any other unlucky creature in its path. Fossils of their massive teeth and 6-inch mandibles reveal they had a specialized, hypercarnivorous, bone-crushing diet similar to hyenas, though hyenas aren't canines. If these big guys were still around, they'd make the ultimate guard dogs. Although, I'm not sure how comfortable I'd feel with a bear-sized dog lounging around the house. Still, probably more comfortable than dealing with 70 chihuahuas, right? So, what would you prefer? For the bear dog, hit that like button, and for the mini chihuahuas, hit subscribe. All set? Great! So, what other massive animals do we have next? Elephant bird. Much like canines, birds come in all shapes and sizes, from the tiny, 2¼ inch hummingbird to the massive ostrich, which can reach 9 feet tall and weigh up to 300 pounds. But while ostriches may be the largest living birds today, they're no match for one type of extinct giant, the aptly named elephant bird. These flightless giants roamed the islands of Madagascar until about 1,000 years ago, and they were truly massive. For perspective, take a look at their eggs, the largest bird eggs ever discovered. Each egg measured over 12 inches long and weighed up to 22 pounds, with a volume 150 times greater than a chicken's egg. Today, Ostriches lay the largest eggs of any bird, yet their eggs are only about 1/7 the weight and half the height of an elephant bird's egg. But enough about the eggs, how big were the birds themselves? DNA from skeletal remains shows these flightless giants stood around 10 feet tall, about a foot taller than the average ostrich. Okay, that's impressive, but the largest of their species, Epiornis maximus, weighed in at an astounding 1,100 pounds, making them 4 times heavier than ostriches. These birds were truly enormous. Parapuzosia sepenridensis for our next colossal creature. We're diving down into the depths of the ocean. In the depths of the ocean, you'll find cephalopods, a group that includes marine mollusks like squid, octopuses, and cuttlefish. The title of the longest living cephalopod today belongs to the giant squid. I mean, the name says it all. These creatures can grow to over 42 feet, though most of that length is in their tentacles, with their body spanning closer to 8 feet. And length isn't their only impressive feature. Giant squids also have the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, reaching up to 10 inches in diameter, about the size of a human head. Then there's the colossal squid, which, despite measuring around 33 feet, is ironically shorter than the giant squid. However, its chunkier build makes it the heaviest living cephalopod, weighing in at a massive 1,100 pounds, nearly double the weight of a large giant squid. But surprisingly, neither the colossal nor giant squid hold the title of the world's biggest cephalopod. That honor actually goes to Parapuzosia sepenridensis. Easier said than done. These ammonites, or shelled cephalopods, lived way back during the late Cretaceous period, between 166 million years ago. The largest fossil shell of this remarkable ammonite species, Parapuzosia sepenridensis, was nearly 6 feet in diameter. And that was just an incomplete specimen. Estimates suggest that a complete shell could reach up to 11 feet wide, meaning these hefty cephalopods would absolutely dwarf a human. Even more astonishing, the shells alone of Parapuzosia sepenridensis may have weighed over 1,500 pounds, almost a third more than a colossal squid. And that's just the shell. The total weight of these beasts might have exceeded 3,200 pounds, or 1.6 tons. So, why did they get so big? One study looked at historical ammonite fossils and suggested that predation pressures at the time pushed these ammonites to evolve larger sizes, making them harder to hunt. Although the findings were inconclusive, it's impressive that these giants didn't just sink straight to the seafloor. Eastern lowland gorillas are the largest and most imposing primates alive today. Full-grown males can stand 5.5 feet tall and weigh up to 485 pounds with powerful, muscular bodies. As intimidating as these gorillas may seem, there was once a primate that would have even made them nervous. So far, only teeth and jawbone remains of Gigantopithecus blacki have been found, but they're so large that paleontologists estimate this giant primate could have stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed an incredible 1,200 pounds. Unfortunately, Gigantopithecus blacki's massive size may have been its downfall. Likely a herbivore, it would have needed a huge amount of food like fruits, leaves, and forest plants to survive. But around 100,000 years ago, as the climate warmed, forests started turning into savannas, and this gradual loss of food sources led to its extinction. Phew, good thing. I mean, oh no, how tragic. Poor, absolutely terrifying, giant primate thing. Titanoboa studies on phobias suggest that around half of all adults feel uneasy around snakes, with 2 to 3% having a full-blown snake phobia. And who can blame them, especially with serpents like the 30-foot, 550-pound green anaconda out there. But imagine if things were even worse for those with snake jitters. Around 60 million years ago, during the Paleocene period, Earth was home to the largest snake species ever discovered, the Titanoboa. Just hearing that name, you might picture a snake that could rear up over the treetops or stretch across a whole road. And honestly, you wouldn't be too far off. Based on fossils of a massive vertebra discovered in Colombia, archaeologists estimate these colossal snakes could reach up to 42 feet in length, over 7 times the length of an average human. If it lifted just half its body, it would tower over you like a two-story building. Titanoboa also packed a serious weight, estimated at up to 2,540 pounds, about as heavy as a small car and nearly 5 times the weight of a green anaconda. The good news? They weren't venomous. The bad news? They were constrictors. That's right, these 42-foot monsters hunted by wrapping around, crushing, and suffocating their prey. Thank goodness these giants aren't around today. Can you imagine one of these slithering through a town? Talk about a nightmare. Titanoboa has definitely cemented its place in history as one of the largest animals of all time. Arctotherium angustidens behind glass or on a screen, polar bears may look pretty cute. Up close, though, it's a different story. These Arctic giants can weigh over 1,300 pounds, stand 5 feet tall at the shoulder, and stretch up to 10 feet long, making them not only the largest bear but also the largest living land carnivore. But even they aren't the biggest bears to have ever walked the earth, not by a long shot. If we go back around 700,000 years, we'd find Arctotherium angustidens, a bear native to South America that holds the title of the largest bear ever. Just look at its humerus, the top bone of the front limb. For scale, the humerus of a 160-pound spectacled bear looks tiny next to that of an American black bear, which weighs about 460 pounds. And this massive humerus? It's from Arctotherium angustidens, which paleontologists estimate weighed between 2,070 and 4,500 pounds. Even at the lower end, that's a third heavier than the biggest polar bears. Standing on its hind legs, Arctotherium angustidens likely reached an astonishing height of 14 feet. Even its paws were enormous, measuring 15 inches, they were more than twice the size of a human hand. Sadly, their massive size also led to their extinction. It's thought that faster, smaller predators outcompete them, limiting their food sources until they eventually died out 700,000 years ago. And honestly, thank goodness for that. I can't even imagine how intimidating it would be to run into one of these literal giants. Sarcosuchus imperator. In Niger, West Africa, there once lived a species of crocodilian that didn't just sit at the top of the food chain, it absolutely dominated it. Today's saltwater crocodiles, like this one, are nothing to mess with. They can reach up to 23 feet long and weigh around 2,650 pounds, making them the largest and heaviest reptiles alive. But even these giants are small compared to Sarcosuchus imperator, which roamed the Earth during the early Cretaceous period, around 112 million years ago. Based on skull and vertebrae fossils, paleontologists believe these supercrocs grew up to 40 feet long and likely weighed close to 9 tons. That's double the length and nearly 8 times the weight of Lelong. The 18-foot, 2,370-pound saltwater crocodile that was the largest ever held in captivity. If that wasn't intimidating enough, Sarcosuchus imperator had a super long snout filled with 132 conical teeth, each up to 6 inches long. Its bulky build and the fact that its teeth didn't interlock suggest to paleontologists that this colossal croc could ambush and prey on anything that entered its waters. Whether it was giant fish or even dinosaurs, Sarcosuchus imperator truly earned its title as a super croc. And yes, that also means it was one super scary croc. Palaeoloxodon namadicus. It probably won't surprise anyone that the largest land animal alive today is the elephant. Specifically, the African elephant, with bulls reaching heights of 13 feet at the shoulder and weighing up to 12 tons. But during the Pleistocene period, between 2.5 million and 11,700 years ago, there was an even larger elephant on the scene. Based on the discovery of a partial femur measuring around 6 feet 2 inches, paleontologists estimate that an ancient species called Palaeoloxodon namadicus stood a staggering 17 feet tall at the shoulder, towering over any modern elephant. That's taller than a T-Rex and a human combined. These massive creatures weighed around 24 tons, more than twice the weight of today's African elephants. And just one look at their skull tells you how colossal they really were. Their tusks, stretching up to 12 feet long, were twice the length of an average African elephant tusk. In fact, a single tusk is estimated to have weighed around 260 pounds, over 60 pounds heavier than the average adult human. This crowns these ancient elephants as the largest land mammals to have ever walked the earth. Now that's a fact that's hard to forget. Leedsichthys in 1886, on a farm in Peterborough, England, paleontologists discovered what they initially believed were the backplates of a stegosaurus. As they uncovered more, paleontologists became less certain about what they were dealing with. It turned out it wasn't a stegosaurus or even a dinosaur, but the impossibly large bones of Leedsichthys, a prehistoric fish. As crazy as it sounds, it was an understandable mistake. Among all bony fish with skeletons made of bone tissue rather than cartilage, Leedsichthys takes the crown as the largest. This massive fish, which swam Earth's seas 165 million years ago, is estimated to have stretched an astonishing 55 feet. That's bigger than a school bus and nearly 10 times the length of an average human. These creatures would make submarines look like rubber duckies. Weighing in at around 50 tons, Leedsichthys would have tipped the scales in a big way. For comparison, today's largest living bony fish is the ocean sunfish, a huge, floating blob of a fish that far exceeds humans in size. But even the ocean sunfish is only about 20% as long as Leedsichthys, and at around 5,000 pounds, it's less than a 20th of its weight. Honestly, I'm pretty relieved these giants aren't around today. I'd think twice before going in the ocean if they were. Megalodon were sticking around underwater for this next colossal creature, which was so massive that it might have even made Leedsichthys a bit nervous. Megalodon, this is well, I'll let Jason Statham do the honors, it's Megalodon. Yes. While the Meg was a fictional action film about a gigantic shark, the Megalodon itself was a real shark. In fact, it was the largest shark ever to exist and one of the largest fish in history, ruling the oceans during the Miocene and Pliocene periods, approximately 20 to 3.6 million years ago. Exactly how big it grew is still up for debate, as estimates are based on tooth size, the largest verified specimen being an enormous 7.48 inches long. Why only teeth? Because shark skeletons are made of cartilage, which doesn't fossilize well. The Natural History Museum estimates it at 50 feet, while some researchers believe it could have reached lengths of up to 82 feet. Even at its smallest estimate, the average whale shark, the largest living cartilaginous fish, is no match for the Meg, reaching only about half its length. But size wasn't its only weapon. Megalodon's jaws held around 276 of these 7-inch, razor-sharp teeth, giving it an estimated maximum bite force of 182,000 newtons. For comparison, the human bite force maxes out at around 1,317. Suddenly, great whites don't seem so intimidating. Titanosaurs. Dinosaurs are famous for being the largest animals ever to walk the earth, but the sauropod subgroup, especially the Titanosaurs, takes the crown for sheer size. With extremely long necks and thick, sturdy limbs, these plant-eating giants were perfectly adapted to carry their massive frames. In 1987, paleontologists discovered Argentinosaurus, a dinosaur from about 90 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. Though only a few bone fragments were found, paleontologists estimated its size to be around 115 to 120 feet long and weighing a mind-blowing 77 tons, the equivalent of about 12 African elephants. This was one enormous discovery. Then, in 2014, an even bigger find was made, the remains of Patagotitan, a giant that roamed 101 million years ago in the early Cretaceous. Its femur alone was over 8 feet tall, taller than the average human. From this, scientists estimated it could have measured a staggering 123 feet long and weighed around 63 tons. That's as long as 20 people laid down end to end and heavier than 9 African elephants. Holy cow! Or, I guess, elephant, in this case. So, while the longest dinosaur found was Patagotitan, the heaviest is still Argentinosaurus. For now, anyway, who knows what other massive creatures might be uncovered in the next few years. Whopping whales. There aren't many animals that can compete with titanosaurs for sheer size. Sperm whales come close. These massive animals, which can make ships look tiny, can reach lengths of up to 60 feet and weigh more than 80 tons. But that's still no match for the titanosaurs. However, there is another ocean giant that can outdo even them. Any guesses? Yep, I'm talking about the blue whale, often considered the largest animal ever to exist on Earth. Surprisingly, though, blue whales don't beat titanosaurs in length, as they measure between 80 to 100 feet. But they more than make up for it in weight. The heaviest blue whale on record tipped the scales at an astonishing 210 tons, almost triple the weight of the heaviest Argentinosaurus. Incredibly, there once was another whale that may have been even heavier. Back in the Eocene period, around 39 million years ago, a whale known as Basilosaurus roamed the oceans. While it reached lengths of 55 to 65 feet, making it large but shorter than a blue whale, some paleontologists estimate it could have weighed up to a jaw-dropping 370 tons. For context, if this ancient whale really did weigh 370 tons, it would be over 3 times as heavy as a blue whale. Just imagine the terror of having one of these massive giants swimming beneath your ship. So, why do researchers think it was so big? When fossilized vertebrae of this beast were discovered, they weighed over 220 pounds each. Even though Basilosaurus was shorter than a blue whale, its skeleton alone might have weighed between 5.8 and 8.3 tons, twice the weight of a blue whale's skeleton. Why? Most bones have tiny holes that make them lighter, but Basilosaurus bones were completely solid. In fact, they were so dense that driving a nail into one with a hammer would be impossible. This density, similar to that of manatee bones, likely helped Basilosaurus stay submerged while feeding, with the rest of its body mass made up of fat and muscle to keep it buoyant. Talk about taking big bone to a whole new level. The bloop, but as enormous as the blue whale and Basilosaurus were, they might not even be the largest creatures to ever exist. To understand why, we need to go back to 1997. At that time, researchers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, were listening for volcanic activity in the South Pacific. To monitor volcanic activity, NOAA placed underwater microphones across the ocean. While they didn't detect any volcanic activity, scientists picked up a sound that shocked them to their core. Take a listen. It may not sound like much, but this noise was so powerful that microphones 2,000 miles apart detected it. Chillingly, NOAA's Christopher Fox noted that the sound, nicknamed the bloop, had a rapid variation in frequency, similar to sounds made by marine animals. For comparison, blue whales make a similar sound that can be heard up to 1,000 miles away, with their calls reaching a staggering 188 decibels, louder than a jet engine. Given that the bloop was heard 2,000 miles away, one would assume it must be from something far bigger than a blue whale. It may be hard to imagine a massive marine creature lurking in the depths, but keep in mind that around 95% of the deep ocean remains unexplored by humans. So, who really knows what's down there? More conservative estimates suggest that if the bloop does exist, it would measure around 250 feet long, 3 times the size of a blue whale and possibly large enough to prey on them. Others speculate that any creature making a sound that loud would have to be closer to 700 feet long, that's 6 times longer than a titanosaur, 7 times longer than a blue whale, and a whopping 50 times the length of a great white shark. But there's some serious doubt about its existence. Today, most reputable scientists believe the bloop was actually the sound of an icequake, a common occurrence in the Southern Ocean caused by sea ice cracking and melting off glaciers into the ocean. Additionally, the bloop sound is typically played back at 16 times its normal speed, which makes it resemble an animal vocalization. In real time, however, the sound is much more similar to that of an icequake. So, chances are, the 700-foot bloop creature doesn't exist. No supersized ocean beast lurking in the dark depths of the Pacific. At least, none that we know of. Which of these gigantic beasts impressed you the most? And have you ever seen any of their living relatives in the flesh? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching.